Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Joelle Simone Anthony. I am also known as the Grave Woman, and in this week's segment of Death at the Movies, we will be discussing the topic, the price of the pain. So, movies and television shows have a way of drawing us in emotionally with just enough of a safe distance that we feel the effects of the emotional roller coasters that our favorite characters are on, but safely exit the quote unquote ride without the whiplash. Just think about it. It is completely possible in today's age to log on to any streaming service and go on an emotional ride with our favorite characters, whether it be through Netflix, Hulu, or any other service provider. And many times when enjoying the bodies of works that the vessels in the form of actors and actresses on the big and small screens are giving, we are entirely unaware of the sacrifice and personal tragedies that have inspired their majestic performances. Kelsey Grammer is one of my absolute favorite actors, and in my opinion, his best character portrayal is that of Dr. Frasier Winslow Crane in the hit television sitcom Frasier. Now, Frasier is a radio psychiatrist whose adventures with life, relationships, and everything else are depicted in episodes of the show. So my favorite episode of the sitcom is entitled Good Grief, and it is episode 1 of season 6. And in this episode, Frasier Crane and all of his coworkers are fired from KACL, the radio station where he works as a radio psychiatrist. And during the episode, Frasier experiences all of the stages of grief. And I was so touched by his portrayal of the emotions associated with grief that I was inspired to do some further research, not only on the character of Frasier Crane, but on the man, Kelsey Grammer. And upon doing so, I learned so much more about his personal life and experiences with death, loss, and despair. I honestly learned a lot more than I expected to, and genuinely gained a new respect for Mr. Grammer, along with all of the other performers who dig deep into their wells of emotional agony through the act of method acting to deliver art that is in turn enjoyed by myself, you, and so many others throughout the world. So before I go any further, I have to give a huge shout out to the website todayifoundout.com. They did a wonderful article about the untold tragic life of Kelsey Grammer, and much of what I will be reporting in the remainder of this video comes directly from that article. So I'll put a link below for anyone who's interested in learning more or just reading the article. So Kelsey Grammer experienced 2 significant tragedies in his life that we're going to discuss here in this video today. The first being the murder of his father, which took place on April 25th, 1968. According to the article by Today I Found Out, a man named Arthur B. Niles set fire to Frank Grammer's car outside of the St. Thomas home that he shared with his second wife and 4 children. And according to Mr. Grammer's wife, when Frank Grammer went outside to check on the car and see what was going on, the perpetrator, Mr. Niles, shot him twice. And according to his wife, Elizabeth, she had to pull her body from in front of Niles's car because he had threatened to run him over as well. At this time of his father's death, Kelsey Grammer was 13 years old. And if you are a fan of the show Frasier, you will know that Frasier's brother on the show is actually named Niles. So I found that to be a very interesting, I don't know whether it was planned or whether it was just a coincidence, but I found that to be very interesting as well. So, according to the same article, 7 years later, when Kelsey was 20 years old, his younger sister, 18-year-old Karen Grammer, was raped by 4 men and murdered by Freddie Lee Glenn. On June 30th, 1975, Karen Grammer was sitting outside the Red Lobster in Colorado Springs, Colorado, where she had just finished her shift as a waitress. Glenn, Colbert, and 2 friends had decided to rob the Red Lobster Karen worked at the night before, but they left the restaurant without any money, and when they came across Karen, they forced her into a car, stopped to rob a convenience store, and then drove her to an apartment where they took turns raping her for about 4 hours. Afterwards, they put a cloth over her head, promising to take her home. They dumped her in a trailer park instead. According to testimony during trial, Glenn had taken LSD, and when he got out of the car, he stabbed Karen in the back and on her hand, presumably from her trying to shield herself, and the neck. He then drove away with his accomplices, leaving her for dead. Once she was stabbed, Karen managed to crawl to the back porch of a home that had a light on. Unfortunately, no one was at home. Detectives described the scene where Karen had left bloody handprints and fingerprints and could tell that she had tried to ring the doorbell. From her fingerprints, she was inches away from the doorbell when she passed out. Although, given that no one was home, ringing it would not have done her any good, but of course, she didn't know that. She died on that back porch and was not found until the next day. Police did not know who she was for about a week until Kelsey Grammer arrived and positively identified her body. In 1976, Karen's murderer was convicted not only in her death, but for the death of 2 others and was sentenced to die via the gas chamber. In 1978, however, the Colorado Supreme Court overturned the death penalty sentence. In a 2009 parole board hearing statement, Kelsey stated, "She was so smart, good, and decent. She wrote poetry. We could laugh for hours together. I was supposed to protect her. I could not. It very nearly destroyed me. When we heard this man might be paroled, the suffering began anew." 5 years after Karen's murder, on June 1st, 1980, both of Kelsey Grammer's half-brothers died unexpectedly. Stephen and Billy were scuba diving off St. Thomas at the time when Billy failed to resurface. Stephen went back in after him, but died of a fatal embolism during an improper ascent that followed. Billy's body was never recovered. In a July 14th, 2017 article shared by Closer Weekly, Kelsey opens up about the tragic loss of 4 of his close family members and is quoted as saying, "I just put the pain in the past." I'd like to wrap this video up by asking, do you believe that personal losses help actors and actresses in their portrayal of grief and loss? What are your favorite television and movie characters? And what portrayals of grief and loss have touched you? What personal losses did the men and women behind the character experience that led to their amazing performances? And is the price of their pain worth our enjoyment when watching movies and television shows that highlight the stages of grief, loss, and mental anguish associated with loss? My name is Joelle Simone Anthony. I'm also known as the Grave Woman. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Please feel free to also visit my website, www.thegravewoman.com. Live life, love hard, and I'll talk to you next time.